call this Altoona City Council meeting to order Monday, April 10th at 6 p.m. We will now have a moment of silent prayer. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Beatty,
Here.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
Here.
Councilman Carper,
Here.
Councilman Ellis,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ickes,
Here.
Councilman Kelly,
Here.
Mayor Pacifico.
Here. We are going to switch things up on the agenda tonight and start things off with Fire Chief Adam Free and the 2022 annual report for the Altoona Fire Department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me this opportunity to give a brief highlight of our 2022 in the Altoona Fire Department. I'm going to start off, it's not up there. Can we? So the first slide here is our mission statement, and the role of the fire department isn't just putting out fires anymore. We have an evolving task that we are dealt with on a daily basis. So our mission is to basically put highly trained firefighters on the street to be able to mitigate those hazards. I'm not going to read this word for word, save a little bit of time. So in 2022, we were able to hire 7 firefighters. Listed there was Brandon Battisti, Kevin Kuhn, Michael McAndrew, Dan Over, Ryan Kimberling, Bob Seiler, and David Claycomb. Those hires went through a 10-week intensive fire academy put on by our department in conjunction with Bucks Area Community College. A lot of our personnel served as instructors for that academy, so they were able to teach the cadets our operations. So during that 10 weeks, they went through intense physical fitness training, over 410 hours of training, and got 8 Pro Board certifications. So throughout 2022, we had a lot of promotions due to retirements and resignations. There you'll see we had a number of individuals promoted to engineer, 4 individuals promoted to captain. We promoted assistant chief, and then somehow I got promoted twice last year. So some awards, 4 firefighters were awarded the Medal of Valor, and 9 firefighters were awarded the Life Saving Award for the fire that occurred at Logan Hills Apartment on April 17th, 2022. All those individuals were directly involved in saving 2 lives of that fire during that fire. Retirements, we had 3 retirements last year. Captain Joe Hoff, Chief Tim Howman retired, and Engineer Kenny Over retired. And then we had 3 resignations. They moved on to, 2 of them moved on to other departments, and then 1 moved on to a completely different career path. Just a brief overview of how many incidents we had last year. We had 2,878 incidents last year. So the fire incidents, we had 157 of them. That can cover anything from a building fire, car fire, cooking fires contained to a container. So that may seem like a high number, but 47 of those were cooking fires contained to a container. So if there was like some type of fire on the stove where somebody put a lid on it, there might not have been a lot of damage in that type of fire. So there wasn't 157 building fires per se last year. Overpressure explosions and overheats, they include anything that could be a cooking fire that may not have ignited. There were 70 of them. So out of the 72, 70 of them were cooking fires that didn't fully reach a fire. Our highest numbers, rescue and emergency medical services. We had 1,410 of those. So that category includes motor vehicle accidents, any EMS calls we go on. So 2/3 of that category there would be EMS calls, and then basically about a third of those other calls were vehicle accidents. So it's not all EMS calls in that category. And then you see the breakdown on down through there. Service calls, they could be anything from lockouts, any type of service-related call that we get called for. False alarm, false calls, they could be malfunctioning alarm calls, like sprinkler systems accidentally going off, or a malfunctioning fire alarm system. So we had 313 of those. And then you see the severe weather incidents and the special incident types on down below. So there's just a breakdown, a pie chart of basically the calls. Again, you see the rescue and emergency medical were our biggest number, but of that, 2/3 of those were actually EMS calls, and the other third were the vehicle accidents. Incidents per year, we did have a significant increase in calls last year. We had 415 more calls last year compared to 2021. That equals about a 17% increase. So despite the population of Altoona decreasing, we are seeing a rise in calls. The biggest rise was in the rescue and emergency services category. Part of that is related to the drug pandemic, obviously overdoses, things like that. So we have seen an increase of them. And then we have seen a small increase in hazardous conditions and false alarms. 2020, if you see 2020 seemed like it was a low number that year, that was during the COVID-19 pandemic. During that year, we cut out a lot of our EMS calls, except for cardiac arrest, just for the fact that we have such a limited number of personnel. We didn't want to have a lot of people exposed to COVID and affect our operations. So that's why there's a bigger decrease in calls in 2020 compared to the other years. And this year seems to be trending. We are above where we were same time period last year, so we are seeing an increase in calls this year also. Again, 12% of our calls were motor vehicle accidents. A lot of people think like in the city, vehicle accidents aren't that bad, but we do have significant accidents in the city where we have to cut people out of vehicles. There's 2 examples right there. So we kind of threw that slide in to show that we do have significant accidents here in the city. Training is a big thing that we utilize in our department. So on the right, you see the list of classes there that equal about 89 hours per person. We try to have about 150 hours per person per training. Last year was difficult to get instructors due to everybody getting caught up from the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people are scheduling training. So we were down a little bit. We had about 89 hours through Bucks County Community College. And then on the left, we have individuals might have got, several individuals went through the Fire Instructor 1 certification, Fire Officer 1 certification, NIMS 300. And then we were able to bring the PA State Fire Academy flashover simulator in for 2 days last year. We put 30 firefighters through that, and that basically teaches the firefighter. It shows the development of the fire from the beginning to the flashover stage, so they can recognize the early warning signs of a flashover, which is a dangerous position to be caught in if you're a firefighter. So to be able to recognize those signs before a flashover happens so you can get out of that situation. That was a really good training. Again, provided free of cost from the PA State Fire Academy. Maintenance cost on our apparatus. Maintenance is a big expense that we have. The 2 that are in the bold there are our 2 oldest frontline pieces of apparatus, and you can see they significantly cost us a lot of money to maintain last year. So 311's a 2009 engine. It cost us around $31,000 to maintain last year. And 314's a 2007. That cost us around $25,000 to maintain last year. So we do have 1 engine on order that we ordered in January that will replace one of those. And then we got the LSA grant from the state here about 2 weeks ago. That will replace the other engine. And then those 2 pieces of apparatus will move to reserve status. So it won't cost as much to maintain them at those points. And then I just want to point out at the bottom, NFPA does recommend that a frontline apparatus be on the front lines for 15 years, and then after that, it can move to the reserve status until about 20 years. So about 20 years, you should be replacing the apparatus. The fire loss analysis. So last year, we had a little over $3 million worth of property involved in fire. We saved a little over $2 million in property. So that equates to about $815,000 in fire loss last year. So you can see the different categories. Obviously, the building fire had the biggest loss. We did have 7 civilian injuries due to fires last year. That was right on pace with 2021. And then unfortunately, we had 2 civilian deaths last year. One was a result of an accidental fire, and the other was as a result of an intentional fire. So I credit the fire inspector for doing a really good investigation with that and following up with APD to be able to find a suspect for that. And then we had 14 firefighter injuries last year, which is 2 more than we had in 2021. So a lot of our injuries they're more sprains, sprained ankles, pulled shoulders, things like that. When we're in these houses with hose lines, a lot of these houses are cluttered up, so trips, falls, slips, sprains, and things like that are mainly what our injuries are caused by. Fire inspection reports. In 2021, we had close to 1,500 inspections. Last year, we were down to around 500 inspections. When I got promoted last year to deputy chief, that only left 1 fire inspector. So obviously, with 1 fire inspector, we weren't be able to do as many inspections as what we did the year previously. Also, the fire inspector was out at training for a month with Lucille. Lucille's the newest member of our department, the K-9. So that took a month away. So I estimate if he would have been there that full month, we would have been able to get around 600 inspections done. So it would have been about half of what we did the year previously. Permits that we issue, anytime there's any type of like a flower tent or firework tent, we do issue a permit like that. We had 7 of those last year. Any firework display, we have to inspect that, so there's a permit that goes along with that. And then any open burning permits, we don't really issue them too often, only in special circumstances. And then down below, you'll see the fire investigations that the fire inspector did last year. So out of that 157 that we've seen earlier, only 46 of them required a full fire investigation. So we had 14 accidental fires, 11 intentionally set, and then 21 fires that were undetermined. Some community outreach we did. We were able to host Senator Judy Ward and Representative Lou Schmidt in July. So in the pictures there, you see Senator Ward. She tried on the gear, and we put her in a smoke-filled room so she got a little bit of an idea of what our job's like. And then in August, Representative Congressman John Joyce visited. He was able to meet Lucille and see our fire extinguisher simulator that we got through a federal grant. A little bit of community outreach that we did. We were able to reach 5,497 people through our fire prevention programs and 89 events. We did 2,368 people in any type of community relation event. We did 33 of those. And then through public service, we reached another over 1,200 people in 88 events. So you'll see the man hours there for each of those events. October, our department's very busy. We pair up with Logan Township to provide fire prevention to all the schools and daycares in the Altoona area. We were able to visit 20 schools and daycares and reach 3,700 students in the Altoona area. And then some of the public services we do provide. We provide CPR classes to the public, fire prevention education, fire safety training, supervised fire drills, fire extinguisher training. We attend a lot of community block parties. When we have funding, we do smoke alarm installations, and then we can assist businesses with their business emergency plans. Our juvenile fire setter program, the purpose of that is these troubled children that have infatuation with fires or starting fires. We try to break that behavior before it causes a significant problem. Last year, we were able to reach 7 children, mainly in Cambria County, who were court ordered to go through our program. So we're the only department in a several county area that has a program. So Cambria County reached out to us, and I believe there's one on the agenda tonight up in Clinton County. They have a few students that need to go through it, so we'll provide that service for them. Some grants we received last year, we got $15,000 from the State Fire Commissioner's grant. That we purchased a thermal imaging camera, a ventilation software on the ladder truck, some nozzles, and some patient packaging systems for our Stokes baskets. And then through Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation, we were awarded over $20,000 to purchase 2 thermal imaging cameras. So we had a couple thermal imaging cameras that are around 14 years old. We were unable to get them repaired anymore, so through these grants, we were able to replace 3 of them. And then some of our 2023 goals, obviously we want to sustain our aggressive vehicle maintenance program, continue with our 150 hours of training. We are developing and deploying a company level training, which is going to require guys to do 6 to 10 hours of training per month through the company level with the captains. We're going to maintain the hazard materials team and related equipment. We're going to continue to apply for any federal, state, and private grant opportunities. We're in the process now of switching reporting systems and our asset management software. The new software will also come with a mobile platform where we can access real-time call information and building pre-plans on scene, which we don't have access to our building pre-plans right now on scene because they're all on paper. We want to continue to maintain our facilities, and then we are also in the process of reviewing and updating our standard operating procedures, which haven't been updated since 2017. So with that, that pretty much concludes it. I want to thank the council for their support. Obviously, I want to thank the city manager for his support. I also want to thank the deputy chief and my administrative assistant, Arlene. They put in a lot of work on a daily basis to assist with the operations of the fire department. And then lastly, the firefighters themselves who are out there on the streets every day trying to make a difference.
Thank you,
That's it.
Chief.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions or comments for the chief?
I just have one question. On the apparatus, is that the cost more the firefighting equipment or the chassis?
A little bit of both. There's a lot of expensive equipment on the trucks. The pumps, anytime you get any repair on a pump, it's quite costly. We did have 311 and 314. 314 did have a turbo that went out on it last year, so that was a costly repair. And then 311, the cylinder head was warped on it, and the head gasket went bad. So there was part of the engine had to be rebuilt. That was about $14,000.
So most of the time it's chassis related? Okay.
We try to keep up with like the pump or anything on the apparatus side of it. We try to PM those at the regular intervals to make sure there's no costly repairs with them. So.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, before we open it up for public comment, I have to announce a few executive sessions. We had an executive session after our last meeting last month to discuss real estate personnel potential litigation. There was an executive session after the work session on March 27th to discuss potential litigation in real estate. And then we had one last Tuesday to discuss real estate and potential litigation. And with that, we will open the floor for public comment. If anybody would like to address council, you may please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes.
Good evening. Galwin Ingle Rental Properties. I'm here to address the March 28th article in the Altoona Mirror that referenced the allocation of monies for the American Rescue Plan for roof repairs and violations. First of all, I want to say I think this is a great idea. However, I'm asking council to take into consideration the following 4 points before giving money away, as this money ultimately came from the taxpayers. Point number 1, the home or person receiving the money must have insurance on the property before any work is done, and must continue to have insurance on the property for a minimum of 5 years after the work is complete. The reason is if there's a fire or catastrophe, the money spent from the taxpayers will be insured and the repairs will still get done. Number 2, since most roofs these days have a minimum of a 20-year lifespan, and I'm saying a minimum because metal roofs are 40 or more, a lien should be placed on that property for a 20-year depreciation schedule. This lien will depreciate as time moves on, but should someone decide to sell their property in a year or two and capitalize on the profits from that roof, 90% of that money will come back to the city for the use on someone else's place. This will eliminate the property owner, per se, getting a free roof and making a quick flip on the property now that it is more marketable. Number 3, now this might create a little animosity here. Since the thought of making repairs to keep the tax base present is out there, I ask council to eliminate any free roofs
or major renovations that are free at the taxpayer's dollars to any property owner that receives greatly discounted property taxes or is a delinquent in either like the Altoona Area School District taxes, the county taxes or whatever, and isn't paying the current tax rate. An example of this, but not exclusively, would be somebody that might be paying like $100 a year on like the Homestead Act, and their house is dilapidated and they don't carry insurance. There'd be no reason to spend $10,000 on a roof if you're only getting a $100 tax benefit on this throughout your real estate taxes. And finally, the most important part for me, I ask the council to extend this option to rental property owners who are willing and committed to rent property to lower income tenants and are willing to continue this renting to tenants that meet those guidelines, and that is also including veterans. As a rental property owner, we receive no discounts on our property taxes. We have to carry insurance at all times on all of our properties, and we have to maintain the properties at a much higher standard than that of just a regular homeowner. This would be a great tool to have access to somebody like myself when the commitment is made to help lower income occupants with housing needs. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Leonard, 2019 16th Avenue in Altoona. I got two things. One, the pool. My wife had called to schedule a party for the pool, and apparently the city's not taking reservations yet to do the rentals, and I didn't know where you guys were at with that. Used to be able to rent it for 2 hours or something in the evening.
Yeah, they'll be available, Mike. We're in the process of finalizing where that's gonna be at.
All right, my wife's frantic. She's trying to do my grandchild's party.
We should be getting something online within a week or two.
Okay. Secondly, Matt, I'd spoke with you before about 9th Avenue. I work for Altoona Pipe and Steel, and 9th Avenue runs across the majority of our building there. There's no traffic devices between 12th Street and the underpass of 7th Street Bridge. There's no stop signs, there's no yields, there's no speed bumps, there's nothing. And if any of you guys ran down 9th Avenue while Altoona Pipe is in operation, you'll know a lot of our trucks stick out while we're loading. A lot of our vendors, depending on the size of their equipment, will stick out. Our guys have to walk around those trucks on the outside, and cars fly up and down that road with no stop signs. We had one accident there several years ago because we would pull up 11th Street to back into the door, and because there's no stop signs, the one guy pulled right up onto the bumper of our truck, and our truck backed into it, which is our driver's responsibility, but still the stop sign could have prevented that. My guys are coming to me pretty concerned about their safety when they're out walking around the trucks. We do use four-ways, we use cones, we do whatever we can, but when they're doing 40 mile an hour up and down that street, and it's getting busier. I don't know that's speed, they said about speed bumps, I don't know that that'd be the way to go with plowing and everything down that way. But there's no traffic control, like I said, between 12th Street and the underpass where 9th Avenue ends, and people just kind of do what they want. So I'd really like to see something happen with that so I can go back to my guys and let them know that you guys are taking care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks everyone for your presence here today. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jordan, and along with my partner Jenna Rose, our passion is deep-rooted in ecology with a focus on permaculture design for community living. I am president for a local nonprofit chapter called The Wild Ones, Native Plants and Natural Landscapes, and a new local business owner of an ecological and edible landscaping company called Ecotopian Earth Care, both specializing in serving Blair County with permaculture design, community food forest gardens, rain gardens, lawn to meadow conversion through the DCNR, invasive plant removal, native plant habitat restoration, riparian buffer establishment for health of our waterways, and hopefully helping work on our Greenway Trail system. Here's a quote from Pennsylvania's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to explain what Greenway trails are. Greenways are corridors of open space that can connect people, parks, natural areas, and community gardens, scenic, cultural, historic, and recreational sites, networking through urban, suburban, and rural communities. They vary greatly in scale from narrow ribbons of green to wide corridors encompassing unique landscapes. DCNR's Bureau of Network of Greenways across the state, creating an asset that is highly valued by Pennsylvania and enhancing the quality of life for all. Greenways are becoming one of the Commonwealth's most powerful tools to achieve sustainable growth and livable communities. DCNR's Community Conservation Partnership Program grants can assist in planning, building, and maintaining greenways, unquote. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but when I first heard about the local greenways trail plan, I got super excited. My imagination went wild. And now every single time I commute through town, I see through a fresh lens with visions of potentialities. Oh, I imagine a bicycle trail lined with native fruit trees along the creek right there. And over there, a perennial community garden space. And over there, that busy road, a bridge for bikers, hikers, and animals to cross safely. How nice it would be to see some of the faces of these people zooming by in their vehicles to say hello and feel more in touch with my community. It seems as though this is already somewhat of a priority to help our town become more walkable, and it is of my personal preference to help make it more traversable by bike. Among the nooks and crannies of our tight housing design for railroad work and the busy strip of big box store commerce, there is still space along our waterways and back roads to make room for an alternative, fun, and healthy way to commute. If these trails are like spokes, then they must connect to hubs. My spin of an idea of greenway hubs is to enhance our already established parks by adding native edible landscaping with a permaculture design, aka landscaping that is not only ornamental, but also multifunctional as food for the community, shade, stormwater management, habitat for wildlife, all while keeping its inviting park-like atmosphere. Not wild nor domestic, but something in between. A lot of us remember building forts in the forest or building dams in the creek. Now older, maybe more of a sanctuary for meditation, to read, or some yoga. I would like to revitalize and share that passion, but with the education of a studied adult. Education is a huge yield in these systems because humanity as a whole is becoming more environmentally aware and more health conscious every year, searching for a space where they can get involved. These hubs can host just that. As a regenerative form of agriculture, they teach reciprocity at its finest, with firsthand experience of the ultimate symbiotic relationship. Give observation and nurturing energy towards nature, and nature will return that energy back to humanity 100-fold. Along with greenway trails benefiting our community with an alternative way of commuting through the city, maybe by electric pedal assist bicycles, getting local artists involved to highlight the greenways with murals, like the wraparound from the downtown to Union Avenue, promoting a healthy lifestyle both physically and mentally, hosting habitat for more connection to nature, and with another, providing our community with perennial garden food that doesn't need watered or sprayed, and education on regenerative living concepts in unison with wildlife and clean water. Greenways can also enhance our local economy by plugging in local businesses along the route for an alternative road of commerce. This would usher in an exciting new culture, a culture that would give the new generation a reason to stay rather than heading to Pittsburgh or somewhere out in Colorado like many of my best friends. And maybe some of the Penn State Altoona students would be more inclined to join our community rather than solely looking at our town as a gateway to the main campus. Since 1990, as I'm sure you know, our population has decreased by 10,000 people. This brings me sadness for my hometown. Hopefully I managed to open some dialogue among our Sandy Council members on how we can collectively work together to utilize this greenway trail system for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Tanisha Smith. My address is 1712 21st Avenue of Altoona. I'm just here to talk to you guys. I've been trying to open up my convenience store downtown Altoona for the past year now. I got approved by the fire department. I got approved by the Department of Agriculture. I was told my last steps was to get my equipment hooked up. I get my equipment hooked up 2 hours into them working. The Caparuccios calls me and tells me the city said they had to stop because there was no building permits. By the time that I was there to get Caparuccios done, I was in the city hall. I don't know, numerous of times. I started an at-home business, so I had to change my address multiple times. Like, they knew where I was going. They seen my business plan. They could have been told me that there was no building permits. But I went, I go and get the building permits, and now it's like I'm playing a cat and mouse game with the codes and inspections. They tell me to do this, I get it done, then they tell me I have to do something else. It's like, I've been paying rent, I paid for a remodel, I'm paying bills, and my store is still not open. Like, I went into a store, the old Mrs. Groves building that was vacant for a while, trying to revitalize it. I'm from Altoona, I've been born and raised here. Downtown needs stuff. It needs diversity, and that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm from here, I have kids, and I'm just like literally having a really, really hard time getting my store open. I was told to maybe come here to maybe let a few of you guys know what's going on. If somebody could please like give me like leadway on what I can do or my next few steps. Honestly, I just want someone to tell me if it's a better idea for me to get another location or keep trying at this spot, because like I'm like maxed out. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but paying rent for a year and bills and you're not getting no income back, that's like a lot. So I'm trying here. I don't know who else I could talk to or what I can do, but the city has like all my information. City Needs LLC. If anybody could like reach out to me or email me, and please like try to give me some guidance on what I could do to get my store officially open. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Devin Saylor, 424 Crawford Avenue. I just want to give a quick update on the cleanup project. We're scheduled for May 6th. We highlighted some key areas. The areas are pretty much going to focus on primarily the downtown area, 6th Avenue, going up by the hospital, probably the hillsides there by going up to the campus, Juniata, Gap Road there, and then Crawford Avenue and the cemetery. I forget the name of the cemetery there by Crawford. But a couple places we highlighted. We got a lot of equipment. We got the stuff that we needed. Keeps Pennsylvania Beautiful got us a lot of the stuff that we needed. And the only thing I really got to do now is just kind of go through some of the routes and stuff. Nate, I need to get you the drop-off points for where we're going to put the trash and stuff, but I'll have that done hopefully throughout the week, and then you guys will have that. But outside of that, that was pretty much all I wanted to do. So,
Thank you.
I'm Devin Pierce. I'm the current acting secretary for the Blair County NAACP. My main reason to be here is in support of the consciousness that's seemingly happening right now in our city between people like Devin and his current act that he's putting on for the Red Up Altoona, and people like Jordan that are trying to bring about kind of innovative ways into our current system in town. The main point I would like to bring up is that currently we're in an era in our country and in time whenever we have a lot of infrastructure money coming our way. We have a huge amount of resources involving the natural environment here that we could access not only for education, but as something to build our economy, something to beautify our city, and something to really connect people in a very rare way. If you would please take the time to look at the Greenway maps, the abutting areas, pretty much all to the left of us and behind us, starting at Garfield Park, are completely connected through Ford's system. The backside of Garfield Park is currently owned by the Altoona City still. So most of these parcels where we would start out are actually things we wouldn't even have to purchase ourselves. It's something the city itself could work on. In essence with this, what I would like to point a light on is, even though we're cleaning up the city with the Red Up Altoona, our park systems that were suggested as hubs, a lot of them are dilapidated. Right now, if you were to go up this hill and go to Garfield Park and look down, you would see the entire woods right now, whenever you can actually look through it. There's tons of vagrant materials, there's needles, there's trash, there's things that have never gotten cleaned up and have been there. There's soda cans from the 70s that you could find. And it's something that needs looked at. Going over from that, Gospel Hill. I mean, we have a giant flag of Old Glory that we were capable of persevering to save, to clean up, to make beautiful, to make the monument underneath it beautiful. Have you looked at the bricks going up to it? There's barely a sidewalk. The giant walkway in front of the cathedral that looks up going up to it, the steps are so spalled that you could literally fit your fist down through the abutting guard to the step and the actual cement that's still left. These are things that are open and looked at. These are places where our kids are supposed to be playing. We have something that is supposed to be the pinnacle of our city, and it looks like that. How would you feel? You know, how do people feel whenever they say, I'm from Altoona, and then there's Gospel Hill, and it looks like no one even cares? You know, it's literally falling to pieces. Around the lookout point, if you were to look at the bracing barriers on the underside of it, half of them are missing. Like, thankfully, it's a cement pad, so it can't really go anywhere. But these kind of things can't be stuff we're not looking at, particularly whenever there is money there for the infrastructure, particularly whenever we have people in our community that are trying to be conscious of these things. So I would ask you all, whatever means it may take, whether it's reinvesting in the Parks Department, changing something with our planning in general, or if it really takes someone taking a bunch of pictures and putting it out in the Altoona Mirror, which is something I don't want to do because it's kind of gross to have to show people, you know, and I don't want to go around saying, look, we're a town that has all of these small facilities where kids are playing where the same trash is right beside them. So I would urge you guys to please let us know what we can do as a community to get on it, what parties to go to, and who's willing to take it up, because I think we're ready to take up the mantle and make a change with it. Thank you. Yes, sir. You said the department heads? Do you mean for the parcels that I researched? No, I actually used the online database for the map. Oh, those? I could call the parks, would it be the Parks and Reps department? If you give me a name, I could have a stack of photos on there with very specific information. So if you tell me where to go with it, I'd gladly start it. I'm sorry.
The department heads are listed on the city website.
Okay.
Public Works, the Blair County, Central Blair Rec Commission, they're all listed on the public website with phone
Okay,
numbers.
so what you're advising me to do is that I would go to which department in particular for the parks? Would it be
Well,
Parks and Rec?
It would be Parks and Rec for that. The walkways you're concerned about would be Public Works in the city.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, it'll be done. Thank you.
Okay, there's no more public comment. We will close the floor and move into the resolutions. Linda?
Item A is approving the minutes of the Altoona City Council meeting held Monday, March 13th. Item B is, hold on one second here, let me get this going here. Awarding the comprehensive plan RFP to CZB LLC of Bath, Maine in the amount of $200,000 payable from CDBG funds, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item C is authorizing an agreement between the City of Altoona Fire Department and Clinton County Children and Youth Service for juvenile fire setter program training, interviewing, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item D is approving the City of Altoona's participation in the National Opioid Settlement and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same as needed. Item E is awarding the 2023 roof projects for Booker T. Washington, 6th Ward, and East Juniata Community Centers to J.M. Young and Sons of Belleville in the amount of $237,570 payable from ARPA funds, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item F is awarding the 2023 Capitol Street reconstruction project to Glenn O. Hawbaker of State College in the amount of $1,484,945 payable from ARPA, capital, and highway aid funds, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item G is awarding the 2022 CDBG Street Reconstruction Project to Granis Brothers of Hollidaysburg in the amount of $202,620.56 payable from the CDBG funds and capital funds, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item H is awarding street signs and materials for 2023-24 to Garden State Highway Products for items 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 in the amount of $54,103.62 payable from the Highway Aid Fund, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item I is awarding street signs and materials for 2023-24 to U.S. Municipal for items number 2 and 7 in the amount of $8,588.75 payable from Highway Aid Fund account, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item J is awarding the road materials bid for 2023-24 package A and B to Granis Brothers of Hollidaysburg in the amount of $168,368.50 payable from the general fund and highway aid, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk or deputy city clerk to attest to same. Item K is awarding the road materials bid for 2023-24 package C and D to New Enterprise Stone and Lime in the amount of $31,809 payable from the general fund and highway aid, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item L is authorizing a sidewalk maintenance agreement with PennDOT for SR 1009 to SR 1021 to PA 36 project, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item M is approving the election polling place agreements between the county on behalf of the Board of Elections and the city for polling places located at the City of Altoona Training Facility and Council Chambers, fire stations number 1, 2, and 3 for the 2023 primary and general elections, further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item N is approving a repository bid in the amount of $100 submitted by Pink Pony Properties in care of Eric J. Hill for property located at 1506 to 08 13th Street, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district form. Item O is approving a repository bid in the amount of $251 submitted by Cheap Lands in care of Eric Herm of Homosassa Springs, Florida, for property located at 1926 12th Avenue, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district form. Item P is approving 3 repositories bids submitted by Jasmine Rolling of Lunar Eclipse of Philadelphia as follows: in the amount of $100 for property located at 1926 12th Avenue, in the amount of $100 for property located at 1900 to 02 10th Street, in the amount of $100 for property located at 2409 to 11 Oak Avenue, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district forms. Item Q is approving 4 repository properties submitted by Wilson Ribeiro of San Carlos, California as follows: in the amount of $255 for property located at 1817 to 19 8th Avenue, in the amount of $260 for property located at 1124 to 26 North 5th Avenue, in the amount of $280 for property located at 208 to 10 East Cherry Avenue, and in the amount of $300 for property located at 2012 to 15 13th Avenue, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district forms. Item R is approving 3 repository bids submitted by Jose Caballero of Puerto Rico as follows: in the amount of $500 for property located at 1813 to 15 Crawford Avenue, in the amount of $500 for property located at 327 to 29 Wapsononic Avenue, in the amount of $500 for property located at 331 to 33 Wapsononic Avenue, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district form. Are there any items to be pulled for separate vote?
Yeah, Linda. O, P, Q, and R. And We can either discuss now or vote on A through N and then discuss the other ones.
Okay, do you want to do the consent vote then on the items A through N?
Sure.
Okay. Call for the vote. Councilman Beatty?
Yes.
Councilman Butterbaugh?
Yes.
Councilman Carper?
Yes.
Councilman Ellis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ickes?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico?
Yes.
And the consent vote passes 7-0.
Okay, now on O, there is no local folks to manage that property, and the same with Q and R for those properties. Now, P is an interesting one because it appears they have hired Remax to manage the properties. Has anyone from staff researched that relationship? Anyone? Bueller? Okay. I would like to propose the table item P so that either staff or I can research that to see what the deal is there and make sure that's on the up and up. And then, well, O, Q, and R, I'm voting no on those.
Fair enough.
We need a motion on that? I'll make a motion to table it.
Second.
Okay, item P, to table item P, excuse me. The motion was by Councilman Ellis with a second by Councilman
Kelly.
Kelly. And I'll call for the vote on that. Councilman Beatty,
Yes.
this is a vote to table. Councilman Butterbaugh,
Yes.
Councilman Carper,
Yes.
Councilman Ellis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ickes.
Yes.
Councilman Kelly,
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico.
Yes.
And the vote passes 7-0. Now on items
Q and R? Yeah, O, Q,
O,
and R.
Q, and R.
Yeah.
We'll do item, and I have to do them all separately since they're, right? O, Q. On item O, these are all three are approving repository bids, and they're all further, at the end, further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district forms. On O, it is in the amount of $251 submitted by Cheap Lands of Eric Herm of Homosassa Springs, Florida, for property located at 1926 12th Avenue. Call for the vote. Councilman Beatty,
No.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
No.
Councilman Carper,
No.
Councilman Ellis,
No.
Vice Mayor Ickes,
No.
Councilman Kelly,
No.
Mayor Pacifico,
No.
and the vote does not pass. And then we have item Q, which is approving 4 repository bids submitted by Wilson Ribeiro of San Carlos, California. First, as follows, is in the amount of $255 for property at 1817 to 19 8th Avenue. The second one is in the amount of $260 for property at 1124 to 26 North 5th Avenue. The next one is in the amount of $280 for property located at 208 to 10 East Cherry Avenue. And the next one is in the amount of $300 for property located at 2012 to 15 13th Avenue. Call for the vote. Councilman Beatty,
No.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
No.
Councilman Carper,
No.
Councilman Ellis,
No.
Vice Mayor Ickes,
No.
Councilman Kelly,
No.
Mayor Pacifico,
No.
and the vote does not pass. And then we have item R, which is the approving 3 repository properties submitted by Jose Caballero of Puerto Rico as follows, in the amount of $500 for property located at 1813 to 15 Crawford Avenue, in the amount of $500 for property located at 327 to 29 Wapsanonik Avenue, and in the amount of $500 for property located at 331 to 33 Wapsanonik Avenue. I'll call for the vote. Councilman Beatty,
No.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
No.
Councilman Carper,
No.
Councilman Ellis,
No.
Vice Mayor Ickes, Councilman Kelly,
No.
Mayor Pacifico?
No.
And the vote does not pass. Okay, then we have two ordinances. The first one is for introduction. It's an ordinance of the City of Altoona amending the code of the City of Altoona, Chapter 800, entitled Zoning, to amend Section 800-27 entitled Zoning Map to rezone from single household residential to mixed-use residential commercial 10 parcels of property located on the northern side of South Kettle Street from East Grant Avenue to East Balsall Avenue, all as shown on the map attached to said ordinance as Exhibit A, providing enabling and severability of provisions, repealer, and establishing an effective date. Is there a council member willing to introduce this?
Want to do this as a governing body? So moved.
This ordinance was introduced by Councilman Butterbaugh. We have a second ordinance for adoption, which was introduced by Councilman Butterbaugh, and it is an ordinance of the City of Altoona, Blair County, Pennsylvania, which authorizes the acceptance of a conveyance of real property from the Blair County Solid Waste Authority to the Intermunicipal Relations Committee, a council of governments of which the City of Altoona is a member, and further authorizes the mayor, city manager, and city clerk to execute any and all documents associated with such acceptance of this conveyance. Is there a motion for adoption? Second.
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 Okay. This ordinance was moved for adoption by Councilman Ellis and seconded by Councilman Beatty, and I'll call for the vote. Councilman Beatty?
Yes.
Councilman Butterbaugh?
Yes.
Councilman Carper?
Yes.
Councilman Ellis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ickes? Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico?
Yes.
And the vote passes 7-0.
All right, we'll move on to the city manager updates. Omar?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to call upon Chief Merrill to update us on an event that took place nearly 2 weeks ago at the Altoona Area School District campus. Chief Merrill?
Obviously, the media has reported on this for the last 2 weeks, so it's probably not a surprise to anyone, but 2 Wednesdays ago, so March 29th at approximately 9:30 in the morning, 911 call was received. The caller stated that there were 6 people shot in a bathroom, essentially reporting an active shooter at the Altoona Area High School. There wasn't much more information given, and that was essentially the dispatch that all first responders received. Obviously, the 911 center alerted, all PDs, AFD, AMED, and the school district for everyone to respond. Our first responding officers, obviously, in addition to the school district's police department security force that are on scene already, our first responding officers made entry into the building approximately 1 minute after the initial dispatch, and that was some APD officers, Logan Township officers, and Blair County Sheriff's deputies, followed by, just the best way to describe it is just a wave of officers in the next 2 to 10 minutes. Approximately 60 to 70 officers ultimately responded in that next time frame, 35 of which being various APD officers on various assignments, trainings, and or even court. AFD responded and utilized their apparatus to block off 6th and 7th Avenues, and AMED staged, basically waiting for reports of victims. Essentially, because of the nature of the call and the lack of stimulus once we arrived on scene, we had to coordinate an effort basically clearing not only both the A building and B building of the high school, but the junior high as well. So quickly and efficiently, the officers from various agencies were able to accomplish that goal while simultaneously using the camera system. We eventually started getting reports, unconfirmed at first, and eventually we were able to confirm them that this similar call was happening in other areas. We'd later find out that it was actually across the state and actually in different states as well. Ultimately, being able to confirm that it was a hoax. At that point, I turned over command to the incident back over to the school district. They made the decision to keep school in session, but at that point there had been a pretty sizable wave of parents that wanted to get their children out of school. So we just kind of, actually us and fire both assisted in just kind of maintaining calm and an orderly fashion as those parents that elected to get their children out of school did that. If there is any silver lining to this hoax, is it was the closest thing to a real life test that we could have. I can tell you from the first responder point of view, it was a very, very successful response. This area, not just necessarily us, but the center region, we've been very proactive in active shooter training for well over a decade, if not going on to 2 decades now. And that showed in all the first responders, but then especially I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on how well the school did, to be quite honest with you. And I say that as the chief of police and as a parent of 2 children that go to the school district. They enacted their protocols, which I would consider to be in line with best practices. Overall, they did exactly what they're supposed to do. That later that day, different, my command staff debriefed, their admin debriefed, and then there was a joint, meeting the next day. And everybody, even though generally it was considered a pretty successful response, everyone was interested in how to improve, even though we feel that it was a fairly good job. And the school district especially, I went there with a list of a handful of things that we had identified that we thought that there could be room for improvement. And before I could even speak, they had already self-identified those issues and actually already had solutions formulated and or starting in the works. So again, although, I obviously want to commend the response by officers who thought it was the real deal. I really think, the school district, if there's anybody who understands that the schools and the teachers can't do anything right and everyone always criticizes them, it would be the police, right? So I think I really want to focus on how well they did. And again, everyone's trying to tweak some protocols, and we actually have a large first responder debriefing tomorrow that we're going to continue. That's been pretty much nonstop for 2 weeks. So,
Chief, who investigates a hoax like that then?
Excuse me. In this case, we're being assisted by the state police and federal agencies.
And thank God it was a hoax, but there were other calls made around the country, right?
Yeah, I can confirm that related to this exact incident that it was all over Pennsylvania and into New Jersey.
And, and as I said, thank God it was a hoax, but there's an associated cost with all the time, all the personnel that rolls out for something like that. I mean, this is a serious offense.
Oh, no doubt, and obviously above monetary costs, there was scared children and teachers hiding under desks,
and that's something you can't put a price on.
Yeah.
And the loss of instructional time, and but thank you to you and everyone involved for the response. But I just hope that we don't see more of this.
No, I again, it's being investigated, and I don't want to get too much into the investigation,
Sure.
but it's not advised to try this.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone involved.
Chief, I understand a number of parents came to get children, and is there a protocol for like where parents should go if in a situation like this?
Yeah, so the school district has some procedures in place, and again, as things we're tweaking, and trust me, I understand parents' emotions and wanting to get their children, and obviously this was the best case scenario and it not being accurate, but although every individual parent can feel like they want to go get their child, obviously thousands of people flooding the school is just going to hinder anyone's ability, whether that's police officers' ability to try to neutralize if there is a threat, whether it's us trying to identify victims and get them aid. If there is someone injured and needs aid, we're not going to be able to do that efficiently. So quickly in this incident, and we put out that there was a location identified for parents to get live information from both our PIO and the school's PIO, and that in this incident it was the Altoona library, and we put that out as soon as possible. Again, understand that the first 10, 15 minutes of this incident was very chaotic, and we did our best to manage and try to look at the big picture, but there's certain priorities, and we have to go down that priority list. But yes, I mean, it's hard, and I understand parents' needs. Again, I'm a parent too. Several of our officers are parents, but unfortunately every kid in that building is someone's child, so we have to do what will get the greatest good to get aid to every child in that building, not just your child, and that's the best advice I can give.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate that update. Beyond that, I just want to let you know that Diana, Bessie, and I are reviewing the 95 application for grant proceeds that we received for the Business District Revitalization Grant Program. That's a somewhat arduous process. We met a couple of times last week. We'll meet again. We hope to have a finalized recommendation for council at the next meeting on May the 8th. Also, just wanted, someone mentioned earlier from the public about Prospect Pool. Prospect Pool is, we're working on Prospect Pool in a lot of different ways, trying to bring it up to speed, somewhat reboot Prospect Pool. We're working on a website that will have a lot of information for the public available in the near future. We're going to roll that out, and there'll be public announcements about that. And we anticipate that the pool will open with an event the Saturday before Memorial Day. That's the 27th. And there'll be more information about that announced in the near future as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Omar. We'll move into council discussion items. Councilman Kelly.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carper.
I do want to just commend the first responders who responded last week, and I mean, by all accounts, it was you couldn't have asked for much more from our first responders that day. Beyond that, Chief, I wanted to let you know that my daughter still talks about last October when you visited her daycare. So you're making an impact on certainly preschoolers in the area with those presentations. As a reminder, last month we did a proclamation, and now we are in Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. So do what you can, make yourself aware, and yeah, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Butterball.
I appreciated the public comment tonight, and I especially when some of the examples like of Colorado came up, and I know when we go back to visit my wife's family there, I'm a little jealous of how well they designed for bikeability and walkability. And I think here, one of the things I've been saying for years, it would be nice to have good bikeability and walkability between Allegheny Township, out where the like Sam's and Walmart is, down to Andis Township in Greenwood, where the main drag goes. And I know you cross municipal boundaries 13 times as you traverse that straight stretch, but it would certainly be a good start, not only there, but other places in the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ickes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure I'm going to echo a lot of the comments this evening by thanking police and fire for your work a few weeks ago. Thank you very much for all you do to keep us safe in our community. On the roof repair program, I know that was talked about at the work session. I actually thought the ideas that Mr. Engel presented this evening, several of which I think are pretty good ideas. Other than that, I don't have anything else to address this evening. Thank you.
Councilman Ellis.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Councilman Beatty.
Getting back to Prospect, there has been a lot of work in the committee which was made up of council members and local business people. We have met with people that are helping us with the concession stand. So we're making progress month by month. Taking it over from scratch has been a lot of work. So we've had to redo chemical systems, all that kind of thing. So, just we'll have it up this week, and I think it's going to be a good summer for us. So, thank you.
I'd just like to follow up on Prospect as well and say that Saturday, May 6th is the day that we're scheduling the cleanup day for Prospect. It's going to be a volunteer day, getting the pole ready, painting, pulling weeds, doing whatever needs to be done. So that will be an opportunity for people if they want to get involved. With that, we will turn it over to Bill for media questions.
Thank you. I know, Jesse, you commented on Gawain Engel's comments. Does anybody else care to say anything about what he suggested for the roof subsidy program?
I really liked his idea of putting a lien on the property, so that we weren't flipping homes for people. I think it's important to get that money rotating back into the community if somebody decides to sell it and make a profit. So I think, coming from a landlord, that's some things that are really sharp. And I think, that's one big advantage you have of having open meetings where people can come in and give, like the Greenway, there's a lot of things that, we don't know everything about, but we can learn, through community input. And I think that's what Altoona needs, is more community input, in the different committees we have, and, it just gives us a straighter path.
Anybody else on that particular issue?
I thought they were excellent ideas.
Similar, well, actually, no, hold that, or scratch that. Could somebody explain what the opioid settlement participation means for the city?
Well, Bill, this is, as you're aware, there's, National Opioids Settlement Fund. It's with manufacturers and distributors. In general terms, I can't give you any specific dollars at this point in time. There's a formula they've created in these settlements, and it's dependent upon the number of municipalities that participate. There's also special language as it pertains to municipalities who were parties to the litigation. This is just the next step that is necessary in order for the city of Altoona, who's had previously indicated that it, would participate in the settlement. This is the next step in that process.
Mm-hmm. So, Altoona is one of the parties?
Yes,
okay.
we'll be one of the participating municipalities in this, yes.
I know there's been a lot of different settlements, right? Which one is this? Like, which companies are involved in that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in, okay.
It's in the packet.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I know, Ron, you said something about the Greenway presentation. Anybody else want to say anything more about the Greenway presentation?
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I think it would be a cool way to tie together what we're trying to do with adding trails in the city.
Yeah, I think we can do a much better job now with the education that has taken place, and in the past, when we have tried to do things like this, we'd either be planting the wrong types of trees or trees that end up like uprooting sidewalks, after a couple decades. Now we have a better idea of, okay, what kind of ornamental things, what kind of fruit trees, things of that nature. So the more folks that get involved, the better.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate. I mean, last time I remember you talking about this, there was a lot of research done on native plants versus things that are going to be invasive, and I think a lot of that work goes hand in hand with making sure that we're making the most of our green space in the city. Is there
room, or is there an opportunity for people in private organizations, nonprofits, I presume, to participate with the city in this sort of thing?
Absolutely.
What about rumors?
No, he's saying is there room for people to help?
Oh, room. Oh, yeah.
You say yes, there is? Okay. And then, anybody care to comment on the presentation? I believe it was Ms. Smith, concerns about the difficulties opening the convenience store.
I know a couple weeks ago, there was a document presented that was going to streamline opening new businesses in Altoona. And I don't know whether that was made available, but that is one thing that we wanted to work on is, you know, giving someone, if they come to City Hall and they want to open a business, having a document that can guide them through that process. You know, because there's multiple departments, as she stated, and, you know, not knowing which ones to go to. If you had a document and you could just check things off, that would be ideal. So that is one thing that the city's trying to work on.
Okay. And that's all. Thanks.
Thanks.
Meeting is adjourned.